live.
Okay, yeah, if you want, we can start. So we have enough time.
Yep, I'll hit record, and the time is 7:02.
Okay, so welcome everybody. And before calling the meeting to order, I want to welcome you all to the 8th of April meeting of the Energy and Environment Commission. This meeting is being held electronically to comply with the Governor's State Site Minnesota order and to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the EEC and staff are participating from their homes or office. For members of the commission, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking and raise your hand if you would like to speak. We will have roll call votes for each motion this evening, as well as for adjournment. I will ask Liaison Grace Hancock to call roll after each motion. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those listening in or watching online. There is no community comments during the meeting tonight. However, the committee is committed to hearing and receiving your inputs on matters. So you can send in comments to the City Council or the EEC to the Council Correspondence web form on the City website. The recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the City website tomorrow. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online. And thank you everybody for tuning in tonight for your interest in the EEC and our work for the city. So Grace, I will ask you to do the roll call, please.
Yep. Commissioner DeCane.
He's probably on mute.
I see you.
Hi. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good to see you and hear you. Commissioner Haugen.
Here.
Commissioner Haran.
Here.
Commissioner Hovanek.
Mute.
I see you, Terry, and I see that your audio is off. That's okay. Commissioner Lantis.
Here.
Commissioner Lukens.
Here.
Chair Martinez.
Here.
Commissioner Rattan.
He's here.
I know we have Commissioner Rattan.
Yes. Sorry, here. I was managing the dog.
Commissioner Tessman.
Here.
Student Commissioner Mans. And Student Commissioner Martinez. All right, roll call is complete.
Okay, thank you, Grace. Our next item is the approval of the meeting agenda. So I don't know if anybody has any comments on the agenda. So if nobody has comments, should we agree to move the agenda forward?
So moved.
So moved.
No, somebody. Second.
Seconded.
Okay, so Grace, can you do the roll call?
Yep, and I'll just note for the record that I think Commissioner Haran moved. I think Commissioner Rattan seconded.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Commissioner DeCane.
Aye.
Commissioner Haugen.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hovanek. And she may be having audio troubles. We'll continue, but she's nodding. Okay. Commissioner Lantis.
Aye.
Commissioner Lukens.
Aye.
Chair Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Rattan.
Aye.
And Commissioner Tessman.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Grace. So item number 4 of the agenda will be the approval of the meeting minutes of the meeting of the 11th of March. So does anybody has comments on the minutes? So somebody wants to move the minutes forward? I can
So
move
moved.
them. Second. So Grace, can you help us with the roll call?
Yes. Great. Commissioner DeCane.
Aye.
Commissioner Haugen.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hovanek. I trust that you're nodding. Commissioner Lantis.
Aye.
Commissioner Lukens.
Aye.
Chair Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Rutten,
Aye.
Commissioner Tessman.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Grace. So our next item, it's a special presentation. We have the participation of Commissioner Chris Latondres from the Hennepin County, and also from Sean Gosiewski. I hope I pronounced it well. He is the program director of Resilient Cities and Communities. They are going to both talk about first the commissioner about the Hennepin County Action Plan, and then Sean is going to talk a little bit about the role of the Resilient Cities and the communities on the role they are playing in the Hennepin County Climate Action Plan and the work they are doing with the different cities of the county. So Commissioner Latondres, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Martinez, commissioners, Edina community members. My name is Chris Latondres. I'm the newly elected Hennepin County Commissioner for District 6. District 6 is 16 cities across the West Metro, including Edina, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Northern Eden Prairie, and then 12 communities around Lake Minnetonka. And I'd like to thank the Edina Environment and Energy Commission for inviting Sean and I to join you tonight. I think there's just no question in my mind that taking bold and resilient action on climate is a conversation that we all need, and we're all needed for it. What I want to do tonight is walk through some of the really exciting work that's being done at the county level right now to pull together a strong climate action plan. And this plan is set for adoption, well, discussion, but I would anticipate unanimous adoption by the Hennepin County Board on Earth Day. So the plan is a culmination of a 15-month planning effort that involved 57 staff across 20 departments, 80 public entity partners, many community organizations, and input from over 2,300 residents. It serves as a strong foundation for a coordinated approach to planning, policy development, response to climate change that aligns with our disparity reduction work in Hennepin County as well. We can advance the next slide. What you see here are the values our community told us were the most important in creating a climate-friendly future, ensuring a healthy environment for future generations, protecting those most susceptible to climate impacts, and reducing racial disparities, which really is about environmental justice. It's about protecting wildlife and nature and responsibly using resources and minimizing wastefulness. Our community overwhelmingly expressed a desire for a plan that results in meaningful action that really meets the urgency of the climate crisis. And I think you'll see that reflected if you advance to the next slide in Hennepin County's commitment, first and foremost, to center this plan on a net zero goal by 2050. So with the adoption of this plan, Hennepin County is committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 45% from 2010 levels by 2030 and achieving net zero emissions by 2050 in Hennepin County operations and across the region. Analysis of the county greenhouse gas emissions inventory shows that there, we believe, is a path forward to meeting these ambitious greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, but it can really only happen if we work closely with our partners, and that's really what tonight is all about. Starting after 2020, that solid line across the top is a forecast of business as usual based on anticipated population and job growth out to 2050. That's a status quo that we cannot afford to walk into. The dotted line trending down shows the scenarios of how we might meet this net zero goal. That star at 2025 shows the county's current GHG reduction goal that was established in 2007. The star at 2030 shows the goal of 45% reduction from 2010 levels. And those top 5 blue wedges show the impact of strategies that address the energy use of our own inventory. The green wedges show the impact from reducing vehicle travel and using clean cars. And the purple wedge shows the impacts of the reduction of waste and avoiding disposal in landfills. And finally, that gray wedge at the bottom shows the impacts achieved through carbon sequestrations to get to net zero emissions by 2050. Next slide. The Climate Action Plan includes 12 key strategies to reduce emissions that align with the county's core functions and priorities. On the energy side, the county has a role to play in leading by example and supporting the adoption of these efforts by local governments for broader impact. Because the county operates a transportation networks and supports transit and transit-oriented development, we have an important role to play in reducing vehicle-related emissions. And because of the county's statutory responsibilities to manage our solid waste management system, we can impact reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with material use and waste. So with the property the county manages, there really is ample opportunity to increase resilience, sequester carbon through our role as the Soil and Water Conservation District. We really play a role in supporting private landowners to sequester carbon, no matter the landscape type, be it woodlands, pasture, wetlands, or backyards. If you can advance to the next slide, please. The plan also identifies how we can best adapt to a climate that has already changed to warmer and wetter conditions, and that will continue to change into the future. I mean, show of hands of our public, those that have had unfortunate wet basement incidents in the recent years. I'm among them. The plan outlines how we will respond to increased pressure on natural resources, the built environment, including building sites, roads, other infrastructure, from impacts such as increased rainfall, extreme weather, and freeze-thaw cycles. There are also many opportunities to use green and natural infrastructure to manage stormwater, improve water quality, decrease the urban heat island, and sequester carbon. Protecting and enhancing our natural areas will provide habitat for native plants and wildlife, increasing well-being, and make our communities more resilient. Next slide. So this is about creating an equitable and resilient county. And the county really strives to meet the needs of our residents by enhancing safety, health, and quality of life. As we serve today's residents, the county must also ensure a high quality of life for future generations. The accelerating impacts of climate change will affect all residents, but the impacts will not be felt equally. The effects of climate change related to air pollution, flooding, extreme heat, will make worse health threats, especially for our most vulnerable residents. The county must prioritize protecting the health of residents amidst these increasing threats. The impacts of climate change will more acutely affect historically marginalized communities. And like other environmental justice issues, data shows that people of color, low-income families, and residents with disabilities contribute least to the problem of climate pollution, but are often impacted the most. This plan includes strategies to mitigate disproportionate impacts. At the same time, the investments the county makes in responding to climate change presents an opportunity to reduce disparities in employment and even grow the economy. And finally, the plan calls for educating and engaging all our residents, businesses, and organizations to advance collective action and drive systemic change. Next slide. So this is really about partnership, and that's what tonight is all about. So we know that no one entity can achieve the complex and evolving goal of climate adaptation on its own. The county has clear authority in some areas of this plan, but not in others. For example, operating the county's roadway network or mitigating waste responsibly. But the plan's success relies on engaging a broad range of stakeholders, including our public partners, businesses, community organizations, employees, residents, and I think really significantly our cities who are already playing a leading role in this, and together we can move forward. County staff have conducted several meetings and surveys with public entity partners such as managers, administrators, and senior leaders at Hennepin County cities, watershed organizations, park districts, and other regional and state units of government to learn about your priorities for climate work and opportunities for collaboration, and later to gather feedback on our strategies that will require external partnership and greater coordination. More than 80 public entity partners shared feedback through these efforts, as I mentioned before. Next slide. The plan includes 5 goals, 3X strategies, and 1, 2, 3 tactics to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the changing climate in ways that reduce vulnerabilities and ensure a more equitable and resilient Hennepin County. Next slide. Our climate teams developed a recommendation of 7 foundational strategies, and we see these strategies as the best place to start and will serve as a strong foundation for our county's long-term response. We see pursuing these strategies as important to build capacity within the organization and gain momentum in our overall climate work. So my last slide, next slide. In closing, this plan will serve our vision for a climate-friendly future, one where we envision healthy communities, sustainable buildings and transportation, natural resources that are protected, green infrastructure and economic opportunities, engaged communities powering ambitious goals and strategies, and most importantly, equity. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sean from Resilient Cities and Communities to talk about their role in the drafting process and what the future partnership between local governments and organizations might look like. Sean, you want to take it up? Oh, do we have Sean here?
Okay, unmute. Okay, so I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you. All right, so you can hear me now. And next slide, please. So we wanted to thank the Edina Energy and Environment Commission for mentoring many of the other new environmental commissions across the metro, including Bloomington, Minnetonka, Wayzata, and you guys had been one of the first cities to put climate goals in your comprehensive plan 10 years ago. And recently, about a year ago, we met up with 14 cities from across Hennepin County because we all have these new comp plan goals on climate and want to get them done. So we really appreciate you guys being part of the conversation on breaking into small groups to look into activities on buildings, energy, transportation. And so we really feel this is the pathway forward. So next slide. And then currently, ways that Edina can participate with resilient cities and communities is we are strengthening city environmental commissions. So we have a three-part series on how environmental commissions can partner with their community. And I'll send you guys a link on that. It'll be a Green Step City workshop we're doing over 3 months. Another real exciting thing is student commissioners are meeting together to learn how to be more effective in working with their cities. So we'll make sure your student commissioners can join us on the last Thursday of the month in April. And then we also have a new cohort of elected leaders of color that can work together on advancing equity in the resilience work. So we would love to have your city council member, African-American city council member, join that network with other mayors and city council members across the metro. And then our thing we're really excited about is helping cities to scale up so that it's not just one city at a time doing things, but basically all the cities in Hennepin County and across the metro getting these high impact actions done at the same time. So let's go on to the next slide here. So that's why we're so excited about the Hennepin County Climate Action Plan, because Hennepin County has more than 20% of the state's population, and they have updated their goal to be net zero by 2050. Extremely, very solid strategies, and they're highlighting the need to really create partnerships with cities and watersheds and other entities. And so if Edina wanted to sign on to our support letter in support of the Hennepin County Climate Action Plan, we have it up on our website there that cities can sign on to it. It's at our Hennepin Communities page there. And then so the next slide here. So this is the key issue is that, with Green Step cities are mostly focused on getting things done so they can gain points in Green Step cities. But what we want to do is have you think about how to use the actions you're doing to be a model for other cities. One of the ways that has happened is the efficient buildings work, the Energy Benchmarking Collaborative, which I think Edina is part of that, where they're working on passing the energy benchmarking rules in a number of cities, and it's being coordinated by Hennepin County. So we would like to see that model being expanded to many other areas of climate mitigation and adaptation. And then that would end up creating what we call a regional climate collaborative. So for example, if you look at the King County or the Washington, D.C. metro area, they have a number of coordinated actions that all the cities in those areas are doing at the same time, so that you can really scale up weatherizing older homes, getting the electric vehicle infrastructure. And so we'll have some more research on that page there, so you can click on a national study of the 15 regional collaboratives. And the Met Council was featured on it, but we're really not performing at the level because we're pretty much still at individual cities doing their own thing. And so going on to the next slide here. And so this is one of the things I just want to bring up, that it's a really exciting opportunity as you're doing your climate action planning with my friend Ted Redmond this year, so that as you're looking at your climate action update, make sure to look into your comp plan to see all the excellent elements that are already in your comp plan to reinforce those. Another key thing that we're excited that Edina has been very good at meeting up with all your other commissions, like your Planning Commission and Parks and Transportation Commission, to team up on various things. Because like the Planning Commission will have more to do with zoning, you know, and whatever. So there's different roles of the different commissions. And then finally, we really invite you to think about actions that you're putting in your climate action plan that could be done in partnership with adjacent cities and with the county. So the county will be ramping up implementation of their climate action plan kind of right as you're developing your climate action plan. So if you come up with an idea of a new team that Hennepin County could have, we would love to hear about it so we can, you know, gather more cities to do that together. So let's go on to the next slide here. So then the discussion questions that we could just think about, and we could get rid of the slide once I read the questions. Basically, are there some current actions that you're trying to do in Edina that could use more help from the county? What are actions that Edina is taking that could be scaled up county-wide? What would be it? How would it make it user-friendly for both city staff and commissioners and elected leaders as you're ramping up these multi-city teams? And then what would be some easy actions to start with to get momentum going? So if you don't, we can turn off the PowerPoint so that we can see each other's faces here. Yeah. So does anybody have any thoughts about things that you're trying to work on, whether it's solid waste, energy, transportation, buildings, that you're looking for some help from the county on?
Terry, do you want to say something? We still can't hear you. We cannot hear you. Maybe you should send it maybe on the chat, because we cannot hear you.
Oops, sorry.
So anybody else does anybody has questions to the commissioner or to Sean regarding the climate action plan or the work that we can do together with them? I would like to open the floor for anybody to ask questions.
So my question goes to Sean. So Sean, if there is community organizations who want to partner with you guys on that, what is the process? I mean, who should they reach out to?
Well, they can just reach out to me, and
Okay.
I think I put my email in the chat there. It's just Sean at rccmn.co. And so we're looking at how the county does have, working with both cities and community organizations in their goals, and we also want to do that. So for example, with the idea of having more green job development as cities are ramping up solar installation and weatherization, it'd be great to work with communities of color that are supporting new businesses to get going related to weatherization or solar or tree planting. I know there's other East African groups working on different waste reduction things. And And, so there's huge opportunities, and we would love to have different levels of both neighborhoods, community groups, and cities teaming up. Yeah.
Perfect.
Sure. One of the big examples for Edina has been your Living Streets policy, which has been really cutting edge for looking at bike ped safety as well as stormwater infiltration. And so now finally, Hennepin County is copying basically your Living Streets plan to add green infrastructure to their complete streets policy. So there's many cutting edge ways that Edina is leading the way that other cities can copy what you're doing.
Thank you. I have a question since nobody. First of all, congratulations, Commissioner, because I think changing your final goal to net zero, it was a good decision, because I revised the plan and it didn't have it a couple of months ago. So it's great, because I think that could be a framework for all the cities. I think it can work both ways, both for the cities and also putting a little bit pressure on the state. I know they are working on a new legislation to have a net zero goal. So I guess by having a county having that goal, it's great for I guess for everybody. I have some questions regarding the budget, which I didn't see any of that in the plan, and also like indicators, like how do you be accountable that you are like complying with the goals you're setting? Like I also didn't do that. So have you thought about that? And the third one is a little bit related to what Sean mentioned regarding the cities. So like what role can the county have to work with the cities that they can try to implement similar policies? So like trying to advance, because as they advance, they will also help you advance with your goals. So that will be it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Martinez. Well, first and foremost, you hit the nail on the head with the net zero goal. I think Hennepin County really realized the importance as not just a government entity that has our own carbon footprint to manage, but as really sort of a regional umbrella at setting a bold and ambitious goal. And as you noted, in the initial draft of this plan, we hadn't meaningfully revised that target. Our pre-existing goal was 80% reduction by 2050. And what we heard from both our public and, in all candor, the values and priorities of this Board of Commissioners was, on the one hand, we don't want to just set symbolic targets to make ourselves feel good. And I think that's the danger with some of these targets, because I mean, if we're being fully transparent with our public, whether we're talking about the state or Hennepin County, we are not even on track right now to meet our existing goal of 80% reductions by 2050. And so I think with the adoption of not only this plan, but a revised target, it really lights a bit of a fire around we can't expect business as usual. And I don't mean like status quo in terms of, if you think back to that chart, what, doing nothing means, but status quo in terms of, I mean, Hennepin County is taking meaningful action in the climate leadership space, but business as usual in that direction will not get us where we want to go. So I think that actually connects really, really well with your second question, which is like, so where does this show up in terms of like implementation and budget? And the two main levers that we're looking at for that is, number one, like this is designed to be essentially a vision setting document, laying out some big ambitions. But the next step is, I know Hennepin County Board of Commissioners has an interest in creating a new position that would essentially be our climate czar or chief resilience officer, who would be charged with, as step 2, creating a meaningful implementation plan. So how do you take these strategies and actually set those goals across our 6 lines of business and 40 departments? How do you set up, figure out even what is the right role for the county in partnering with cities? I mean, cities will be doing what you're doing, we'll be doing what we're doing, but where are the middle spaces where we can help most effectively play that leadership role. I think that'll be for that person to help us figure out. I'll end by saying I'm particularly concerned with making sure that with the passage of this plan in a couple of weeks, that it has an immediate impact on our 2022 budgeting process and our 2022-2026 capital improvement plan process. Particularly with that capital improvement plan, if we wait because that's like on a 5-year timetable, if we wait even 1 year in having these recommendations meaningfully impact that plan, it really means we're like 6 years out from making significant shifts in our capital investments. So I'm right there with you, and that's going to be part of my role and job as commissioners. We get a climate czar stood up and move from this vision document to an implementation plan.
I have one other response for you there, Chair Martinez, is how to have, public accountability meetings. One of the best practices that we're encouraging is for sustainability commissions to meet with their city council every year to go over their work plan, which I think you would already do that with the Edina's commission. But then if there could be a way that, let's say, Edina, Richfield, Bloomington, Eden Prairie could meet up every year or two with Hennepin County and your commissions and different stakeholders to see what are the actions happening, how can you move it forward. We could have another one with the West Metro cities and with the Northwest suburbs, but having some ways that it's that you actually, like the state of Minnesota has meetups on their climate goals every 2 years, but it would be great to have meetings with the cities and counties to team up and talk, dang, we really need to ramp up more electric vehicle infrastructure, or, whatever they would find gaps together. I think average citizens should be able to find a way of being connected in with this too. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you both. Michelle?
So when the city went through its Partners in Energy program, we realized that 60% of energy use comes from businesses. What is the county thinking of doing to reach out to businesses? And is that a way that you can help us? Because we found we created a working group around business outreach. We found it kind of challenging to connect with the business community, and just wondering if that's a place where you could help the city, since it would make a large impact in decreasing use.
I'll just start and hand it over to you, Chris. The Efficient Buildings Collaborative with Hennepin County is working to have many cities pass energy benchmarking ordinances, which give the big businesses their actual footprint and then tie them in with incentives and things. And it can be for large residential properties as well. But there's many more opportunities to work on all these huge amount of flat roofs across the county, ramping up, rooftop solar installation, EV charging, and all that. But Chris, what other ideas do you have?
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind most directly, and Jessica Oaxaca from my office, she's my district director, is on right now, so I do have a staff member here, would be to connect you all with Patricia Fitzgerald at the county, who leads our economic development efforts. And one of the sort of interesting realities of this COVID moment that we've found ourselves in is Hennepin County has actually really significantly expanded our relationship with the small business community through our small business relief grants. I mean, Hennepin County has always sort of had ambitions in the small business space, in the economic development space, but like, just in full transparency, like we don't have that many occasions to just be organically built and proactively building those networks at a significant scale, because it's just primarily not been our role. That's changed significantly this past year, and I think creates a unique set of opportunities to maybe have some adjacent conversations in the direction that you're describing. Not specifically around how we support small businesses, but specifically how we bring a climate lens to that. So I'll actually have Jessica follow up with the commission here to figure out how to best make that conversation happen.
Hey, Terry?
Chair Martinez,
Yes.
I have a question from Terry in the chat that I thought I could
Okay.
ask here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank,
Grace.
thank you. All right, so Terry's question is about whether or not the Hennepin County plan has taken into account the priority pollutants that are in maintenance status with the EPA. And she mentioned specifically carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide.
Well, thanks for that question. And I should have prefaced my entire presentation by saying I am not I'm not an environmental expert, but I fortunately work with a team of really incredible experts who I know can get you the answer to that question. We'll make sure that we reach out to the appropriate staff and read that out as a readout of this meeting as a follow-up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else has questions? We still have 5 minutes. Tom?
Yeah, here's my question. So some of us are new to this commission. This is our second meeting. So I don't think we're really well prepared to get too granular, but I guess I'd be curious if you guys have some guidance as we put our climate action plan together. It seems to me the only way that Hennepin County is going to work is if all the communities that support that kind of come together. So as I listen to your plan, the goals, I love the goals. The 7 strategies seem to be fairly all encompassing. So as you've talked to other communities, at the end of the day, do the climate action plans by the respective communities really come down to the different programs that are most important for them to support those 7 strategies and the ultimate goal? Does that make sense? And I'm just kind of curious as to how we should be thinking about putting our climate action plan together, right? There's no sense in reinventing the wheel necessarily on objectives and strategies, but there are certain things that some communities may be able to do better than others. So I'm just, if you have some guidance on that, I would appreciate it.
I'm going to give that one to Sean because I know he's put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, so what we've been doing with Resilient Cities and Communities is taking all the Green Step actions and categorizing them according to the ones that are very high impact. And so if you go onto the resources page for Resilient Cities and Communities, you'll see the high impact actions page related to buildings, energy supply, transportation. And then there's also a page on the Green Step Cities page that is related to ordinances. So basically there's about 30 policies that your city could pass that will get you about 80% of your carbon reductions. And what we want to do is just like the energy benchmarking is the best way to get after your large businesses to get their attention on their energy usage. So that's why Hennepin County started a multi-city team on the energy benchmarking. So we want to do the same thing with passing sustainable building policies, for requiring EV charging in new parking lots, for how to ramp up equitable funding for weatherization, requiring when you sell your house, having a truth and sale of housing inspection on energy. So we basically there's a fairly solid list that we're working on with Great Plains Institute of the high impact actions that it's not just good for Edina, it's good for all the cities to get it done. And the more we can do it together, then we can get other cities like Plymouth, Maple Grove, Brooklyn Park to get momentum from the cities that are really more cutting edge, like Edina and St. Louis Park.
Yeah, and I want to just acknowledge the incredible leadership role that Edina is playing and has played in this space. I mean, you guys are leaps and bounds of many other municipalities. And I think that's actually why, like when I think about, I said it before, like Hennepin County, we've got our own work to do with Hennepin County government as an enterprise. Our cities have individual work to do with as cities as an enterprise and as much as you all have jurisdiction. I think there's a lot of new ground to plow though in the years ahead as we think about those intersections between the two and specifically I don't know, like setting up learning collaboratives and cohorts. So to your point, we're not reinventing the wheel. Like Hennepin County is probably not the expert on how cities can best play a leadership role in this. You all may be an expert in that space, or at least in some spaces, but how can Hennepin County as sort of a regional partner help pull some of those pieces together is part of what I'm thinking about.
Great, thank you.
And we will be sending you guys a note on our new multi-city learning group on reducing vehicle miles traveled. We had 15 Green Step cities sign up to learn together, including Edina and like Rochester and other cities, to look at how to reduce driving through their land use, zoning, bike ped infrastructure, all that. So we'll send you a note about that. It'll be like a 4-session series. And then the cool thing is the Met Council is going to have a new tool out in the fall where that your city can look at different actions in how they would reduce transportation emissions. They already have a tool for the looking at your energy and buildings actions on the LogoPep energy scenario planning tool. Now they're going to have a new transportation action scenario planning tool in the fall.
Okay, thank you, Sean. I know John has another question, and I think we will wrap up. Is it okay that we have John and wrap up, Grace, so we don't take any more time of the commissioner and Sean?
Yeah, I think we had agreed on a 7:45 wrap up. So
Okay,
if there are
so-
questions, I'm happy to gather those by email and get responses back to the commission after the
Yeah,
meeting.
but can John do his question and then we can try to wrap up? Okay, John.
Mine will probably wrap by 7:45. It's pretty similar to Tom's, and I think the answers more or less were covered by Sean and Chris's responses to the last one. I think getting a hold of that 30-point punch list that you were describing, Sean, would be really important. My more or less was, you mentioned Edina is leading on certain items. Where aren't we leading, and how can we close those gaps? So let's get that list and we can look at it.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say as we wrap up here, both to the commission and to the public that may be listening at home or may watch this later, Hennepin County is at your service. Our office is at your service. We'll make sure that my office's contact information is included. So I said at the beginning, this is a conversation we all need and we're all needed for. It's a conversation that doesn't end right now. It's just starting. So please feel free to be in touch.
Okay. Well,
And thanks again for having us here. Thank you. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next item of our agenda is community comments. So I don't know, Grace, if we have any comments from the community.
We do not have comments from the community this evening.
Okay, perfect. Then then we should move to the item number 7, which has to do with reports and recommendation, and it's basically to revise the update of the work plan. We only have updates today for 3 initiatives. The first one is initiative number 1, which is related to the climate action plan. And Grace is going to talk a little bit of what the state is with the consultant and how's the climate action plan team is forming. So Grace, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And let me just pull up my item here. Apologies. Okay, thank you for your patience. Okay, so I am going to share some updates specifically on on the climate action plan team. So as you all know, we are managing the climate action plan development through a smaller group of teammates. And get this to go here. Bad tech tonight, I apologize. Okay, all right. So just a reminder on the climate action plan team, what is it? Its role is to collaboratively co-create the city's climate action plan with city staff and our facilitating consultant, Pale Blue Dot. The process is runs from this month through September. The team meets 2 hours each month to do the day in, day out, brass tacks of developing a plan. And the timeline, as I mentioned, the draft plan will be ready for the EEC and the public in September. And the final plan we expect will go to City Council in December for adoption. The Climate Action Plan team is organized around 8 topics, and these topics might look familiar to you because they're very similar themes around which the Hennepin County Climate Action Plan is organized. They're the common denominators when it comes to climate action. So we have transportation and land use, solid waste, local food and agriculture, buildings and energy, health and safety, water, green space, and climate economy. The sub-team members will split off into, each sub-team member will be a part of 3 different sub-teams. So Chair Martinez is one of our plan team members as a representative of the EEC. She could join solid waste, health and safety, and green space and do more of a deep dive there. So it's kind of a divide and conquer approach. That is going the wrong way. Okay. So the plan team members, the plan team is largely in place at this point. So I want to make a few comments about who is a part of this team. We have roughly 22 people that are a part of this team, and they're split into 3 buckets. I'm sure bucket is not a technical term, but the first is city staff, who are here to support the formation of each of those themes, offer what is the city already doing, and to John's point, where are the gaps related to these themes, and to actually facilitate that decision-making process. So you can see here some of the staff that are a part of this team: our race and equity coordinator, our urban forester, our public health administrator, etc. There are 8 staff who are a part of this team. Then the second group are our community representatives. So we have 4 members of the Energy and Environment Commission who are a part of this team, and you know who you are. We have 2 businesses who are represented on this planning team, Murphy's Tire and Auto, and Wooden Hill Brewing, I believe is the name of it. So we're really glad to have that small business perspective. We have 3 residents at large who represent the general community in Edina. And then we have 3 residents who represent the frontline communities of Edina. And these are the communities that are most vulnerable to climate change. Commissioner Latondras mentioned those who are lower income, people of color, for those for whom English is not the first language, etc. The third group is our allied agencies. So who else, Edina doesn't exist in a vacuum. Who else do we need to work with? Who else do we get to lean on to complete this plan? In this case, we have 3 agencies that we're working most closely with. The first is the Bloomington Regional Public Health, which covers Edina, 9 Mile Creek Watershed, and then we're currently having discussions with the Met Council about having one of their staff join the planning team. And I'll just mention that we had been in conversations with the county, but you can probably expect that between the pandemic and between rolling out their own climate action plan, their staff is at capacity, and so aren't able to engage us, but we're really excited about partnering with the Met Council. And then I just want to offer a reminder on how does the planning team integrate with the rest of the ecosystem in Edina. And so the planning team meets on a regular basis, and they report monthly to you, the Energy and Environment Commission. The Energy and Environment Commission will offer comments on those progress updates for the planning team to incorporate and continue to refine their work. The EEC will also hear from our facilitating consultant, Pale Blue Dot, at key decision points. So a few times this year, you'll hear from Pale Blue Dot specifically when they're asking the EEC to make a decision. The EEC is going to interact with the City Council twice on this topic this year. The first time will be in June when we present updates on our work plan and offer requests for amendments and offer updates on the climate action plan specifically. Again, that's a time for the council to informally offer feedback that the EEC can incorporate into its management of the plan development. The EEC, as I mentioned, then will bring a final plan to City Council in December, asking them to adopt this plan. As I mentioned, Pale Blue Dot is kind of a part of all of this as a facilitating consultant. They are there to bring people together and keep ideas moving. I am also available as a subject matter expert, as a resource support for every group along the way. So that's how the different groups interact and integrate with each other. And then I just wanted to note that the planning team is the primary way that we are developing the plan, but it is not the only way for folks to be involved with the plan. So we have 3 other key groups that we're engaging with. The first is youth. So beyond the planning team, there is a specific youth strategy that's being developed, and it is around involving youth in the formation of the plan, educating youth and youth being educators for others during that formation, and then the implementation and empowering youth to be a part of implementing that plan. For frontline community members, there are specific listening sessions that are being scheduled by our consultant, Pale Blue Dot, and something called Meeting in a Box, where a resident can host a meeting for their neighbors and have the resources to do that. And then community-wide, everyone is invited to be a part of the survey that is live now through June. And then we will have other opportunities for community-wide engagement, listening sessions, and potentially, fingers crossed, some kind of outdoor in-person event this summer to get people involved and excited about the plan. So that is my update today on the climate action plan. No decisions tonight, just the update.
Grace, for the update of the climate action plan. Our next initiative that has update is initiative number, I'm going to skip to number 5, Grace, so Michelle can present. As you remember, we agreed to move that to keep working on the Green Business Recognition Program. So Michelle is going to go give a brief update on what are the next steps. So Michelle, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. So yeah, so next steps, we came across some ways in which we can improve the program and make changes to the application, and we had basically dissolved the group that was working on it. So my request would be that we create another working group. I feel that that would be more beneficial than just having a subcommittee, because part of to more businesses, and I think getting community members involved could also help us in that endeavor, and just reaching out to more, making a bigger net, basically, that we could engage community members. So that would be my recommendation, is that we establish a working group, and then once that is established, then we can really work on the adjustments and then continue the outreach to businesses.
Okay, so you know that you need to do a, how do you call it, a green, like a request for a working group. Is that correct, Grace? She needs to fill out a form or something, or is not for the working group?
Yes, it's a green print that you're thinking of, and yes, Michelle, we have a draft green print from last fall that we can use as a starting point, but MJ Lehman, our community engagement coordinator, and myself can work with you on that. And we'll use the voluntary Edina platform to recruit working group members.
And then I think there is one new commissioner that mentioned that they might want to be a part of the group, but I would like to know if how many
They
commissioners?
already, sorry, the work plan that Grace is presenting has already been updated with the commissioners that said they are interested in being part of the initiative. So can you read them?
Yep.
It's you, and then it's Ted.
Commissioner Lukens and Commissioner Tessman are joining this initiative.
And then what about past? Well, I suppose there's not many more past because they've turned off. But
yeah,
is there any like how many people can you have from the commission on a working group?
You can have 4 voting commissioners and as many student commissioners as you want. 5 is the tipping point when you have a quorum.
So you have now 3 voting, right? And 2 of them are students. So anybody else wants to join?
Yeah, I was
that
actually
initiative?
on that. I was actually on that initiative. I can be there.
And I'll update the document, Commissioner Takane.
So with that, she has a 4 that can the maximum that she can. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Then that's it. So then Grace, because yeah, you sent me that green point print. So should I initiate that then?
I can send you the latest, the version we were starting from we worked on last fall, and then I'll leave it to you to let me know when it's final to start the recruitment.
Perfect.
So
that's all I have, I think.
Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. So the next initiative that has an update is initiative number 4, which has to do with the sustainable building policy. So Grace sent some documents, so I guess you're going to present them, Grace, or you're going to talk about them?
Yes, and again, I apologize. My computer is just taking a minute, so let me get it up for us. Okay, so ahead of this meeting, you did receive a green buildings policy report from the Center for Energy and Environment, and you also received a draft city buildings, sustainable buildings policy. Tonight, I'd like to cover a few key aspects of this policy and the development process for your input, as it will inform the adoption of the city policy, as well as the development of the commercial buildings policy. And I'll talk a little bit more, but you'll see this better illustrated in my slides. So I do have about 10 slides. I want to walk us through this topic, introduce the topic, and share with you where we are today. And then at the end, I'd welcome some discussion and the opportunity to capture your feedback. So why sustainable buildings? The Hennepin County presentation teed this up very nicely, and Commissioner Horan's comments around business electricity use was also timely. So these graphs that you see here were pulled from the city's 2016 Electricity Action Plan. On the left, you can see the top electricity users in Edina. Commercial and industrial buildings made up about 60% of the total electricity use. City building electricity use is less than 5% of the total. Looking only at commercial properties on the right-hand side, you can see that nearly 90% of electricity use was only related to 20% of commercial properties. These are our largest properties in Edina, and without addressing this challenge, we can't meet our city sustainability goals. So staff to date has taken a dual policy approach. Developing and adopting a city policy first allows us to institute some of these changes faster. It also allows us to pilot processes and identify hiccups internally to anticipate the challenges of rolling this out more broadly with commercial buildings. And the city does have the resources and the responsibility to lead by example in this topic. A commercial building policy, on the other hand, will take public engagement, and there are constraints because the state of Minnesota sets the building code, and cities are unable to establish building requirements that are more strict than this state code. So developing a commercial building policy is a longer process as we identify ways to manage this constraint, but it's one that we're using the city policy process to build off of. So I'm going to share a little bit more information about the policy development and present some key questions for you at the end. I'll talk about process, I'll talk about timeline, and then I will focus our time on some key questions. So here is a timeline noting the dual process that staff are managing now. The city's building policy has been reviewed by council, and with your input tonight, it will go to the city's executive leadership team for comment and adoption by the city manager. The commercial policy development does look different given the varied and larger number of stakeholders. Luckily, we have two familiar resources to do this work, however. So the gray arrow shows Hennepin County's Efficient Buildings Collaborative, which you heard mentioned by one of our presenters around our building energy benchmarking ordinance, which is in effect. It came into effect in Edina in 2019. This group is coming back together, convening metro cities interested in developing and passing sustainable building policies. The collaborative is scoping what technical resources the county can provide to cities who want to institute building policies. So the collaborative is underway now. They will complete their scoping process at the end of June and will identify what resources they can offer to cities at what level of investment. The next resource that we have is here in the blue arrows, and this relates to an internal development process that we're just kicking off, and it's being led for the city of Edina by the Center for Energy and Environment. The Center for Energy and Environment, who authored the policy report that you had in your agenda, has grant money to support a policy development process with stakeholder engagement for sustainable buildings, and it has invited Edina to take advantage of the structured process. So this is an opportunity that just came up this week, and we're really pleased to be a part of it. This process kicks off in May and will wrap up in September. In September, I am presenting a draft policy to City Council, taking their feedback into account, and then my goal is to present a final policy to City Council for adoption at the end of 2021, with the policy coming into effect at a later date. So, what's in a policy? You did receive a report outlining best practices of other cities already implementing a sustainable buildings policy. Edina has already met with a staff work group internally, and here is our recommendation for how we would structure a policy in Edina. So there are three aspects. The first is the policy structure. Staff is recommending including two pieces, a third-party certification, which we'll talk about more in a second, and an Edina-specific overlay. We recommend that a commercial policy apply to municipal buildings, which is actually in the first policy, but all commercial buildings, including multifamily and potentially industrial, as well as any new parking structures that are built. And then finally, staff are recommending that there are two policy triggers, the receipt of public funding or a planned use development variance. So here you can see the first part of the policy structure, which is a third-party rating system. This table shows the kinds of developments on the left and the most applicable third-party rating system on the right. And so a third-party rating system can be very familiar to you. It can be Energy Star, it can be LEED. In Minnesota, we have one called the B3 guidelines specific to the state. For multifamily units specifically, we have enterprise green communities. So we have some really exciting rating systems here. And these rating systems allow the city to Tom's point earlier, not reinvent the wheel, but to tap into existing best practices and familiar processes for area developers. We do recommend offering more than one rating systems to allow a development to choose the one that best meets their specific project. I do want to note that B3 is interesting. I mentioned it's unique to Minnesota. Any building that receives state bonding dollars, so really any structure you see built by a state agency, must meet B3 guidelines already, but that does not apply to municipal buildings. The second part of the policy structure beyond the third-party rating system is what's called an overlay. And an overlay is a collection of sustainability requirements that must be met regardless of what third-party rating system is followed. So this is the floor. This is what Edina wants every development to have. It's not a recommendation to change zoning code, but it is a list of requirements for all developments subject to the policy. We're actively developing key metrics related to this list of themes. You saw where we are today. You saw that in the city policy that was included in the agenda. A couple notes on application for the overlay. Cities handle it differently. It could be applied in full to all developments. Any development subject to the policy must meet the requirements in each overlay theme. That's how St. Louis Park approaches it. Or the city could take an a la carte approach, either asking that a development comply with 5 of the 7, or constructing a kind of point system to these different themes. But either way, the developers could kind of pick and choose as long as they met some threshold of achievement. And that is how Duluth applies its policy. So we have options here. Applicability. So who would this apply to and what are the triggers? All cities that currently have a sustainable building policy in place, which are 6 cities, in the state. All cities except Minneapolis, who are actively revising their policy, cover this full list of building types. I do want to make 3 notes for you. Single family is included in all policies in Minnesota, but in practice, no one has actually brought a home through the process because of the policy triggers. For multifamily buildings, if the building is 100% affordable and receives funding through the Minnesota Housing Agency, it must already meet one of the third-party rating systems, Minnesota Green Communities. For other multifamily buildings that are market rate, we think this offers a really strong case study for the ability of these market rate dwellings to comply with a third-party rating system. And then third, renovations are generally defined as those that affect a certain square footage and include some mechanical system replacements. This is a really important part of the new development patterns in Edina and highlights why staff recommends offering a choice on third-party rating systems. And then I want to note policy triggers. All cities that have a sustainable buildings policy in place use public funding to bring projects into compliance with their policy. And this is one way that cities can adapt to this requirement that no city building code can be more strict than state building code. Public financing is a way to manage that constraint. In Edina, in the last 10 years, we have had about 1 project per year receive public funding. So 9 out of roughly 60 projects in the last 10 years have received public funding, not a huge number. So there's emerging interest in using another tool, a variance request to zoning code called a planned use development request, as a trigger as well. In Edina, this is really key. The majority of, as I mentioned, for public funding, the majority of these were already affordable housing. So they were already complying with a third-party rating system. But in the last 10 years, 40 of the 60 projects requested a planned use development, which means that 2/3 of the building developments would be subject to such a policy. So then I just want to note a few considerations from other Minnesota cities who already have a sustainable building policy in place. A policy does not slow development. In the 6 other cities who already have a policy on the books, no developments have backed out upon receiving these requirements. Training and case studies go a long way, so dedicating time and resources to the rollout is imperative in Edina, just like it has been in other cities. And when it comes to development costs, there is an increase in upfront costs. From conversations so far, we understand it to be between 5 and 10% premium, but there's also a long-term cost savings and a stronger alignment with the triple bottom line evaluation of projects when they go through, when they add sustainable building practices. Then I just want to note at the end here that I did present this information to City Council at their work session on March 16th. Their primary questions and comments related to the economic impact of such a policy and the technical capacity for staff to enforce the policy to actually help us reach our sustainability goals. So those are 2 pieces that Edina is really looking to better understand through cooperation with Hennepin County Efficient Buildings Collaborative and Center for Energy and Environment. So last slide, here's a few questions. I'm happy to use these questions to spur discussion, but mostly I'd like to hear your thoughts and comments, which I will share back with City Council when I'm in front of them in September. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and come back to you all.
So I want
questions or comments?
Bayardo, yeah.
Hey, Grace. Quick question. So has the county implemented any of these overlays or different options for new buildings?
The county has not. The 6 cities in the state, some of them are in the metro. Minneapolis, St. Paul, and St. Louis Park and Maplewood all have sustainable buildings policies on the books, but the county does not have something like this already.
Since there's very little interest apparently in Edina to accept public funds for new buildings, can the city change those codes, and how difficult is that going to be?
To encourage seeking more public funding,
and to actually, have code change so that any new building, public funds or not, is using more efficient and green policies.
potentially. Yes, within the city. So I mentioned tax increment financing in the presentation, but there are 7 or 8 different buckets of public funding, community development block grants, for instance, that if a development were to tap into, we could require them to comply with this policy. So that would hit state and local funds. There is still that kind of missing middle, if you will, that if someone were to receive funds from the Metropolitan Council, could we require them to comply with the policy? Probably a question for our city attorney, but it's something we can explore.
Does
Yeah,
anyone
good questions.
have comments? John?
What is the percent of new development, like square footage or by dollars, by building type, municipal, commercial, single family, multifamily? I feel like that's a really important component here, and I don't really understand anecdotally, I see a lot of tear downs in my area, rebuilds of single family homes. There's obviously a lot of multifamily development in the Southdale area. What are we talking here in terms of percent of projects? Because that's really what we're trying to impact. And so if it's super lopsided towards commercial spaces or new single family homes, we would need to understand that. Is there data on that? Do you have data on that?
Yes, we do have data on that. I can get you better data than what I'm about to share, but our economic development manager does keep his finger on this pulse. What I can tell you is that while there is a lot of development overall in Edina, the majority is commercial or multifamily. So I would say commercial mixed use multifamily. We do have like 150 homes that are torn down and rebuilt every year, single family homes, but the square footage and the associated electricity use does not compare to the hundreds of thousands of square footage that we're building on commercial and multifamily. So the bulk of the issue in 2016 when our electricity action plan was developed was commercial. That trend continues and continues to grow.
It seems like in that case, then if there's a commercial, for any commercial space, and I'm thinking of just these developments in the Southdale area, absorbing a 5 to 10% cost premium on that is not going to sink the project. So anecdotally, you see across the state that that's not sinking any projects. People aren't walking away because of this. These are policies that are in place all over the country in areas that have tons of development just like this. And this in no way, shape, or form is going to be a deal breaker for any developer. I would comment pretty strongly to council that we don't need to worry about the cost impacts on this. Obviously, the developers are going to complain about it, incessantly, but that's missing the point. The whole point here is long term.
Thank you.
Hi,
Anybody else?
Rajiv.
Questions?
Rajiv here. Just building on John's point. While we're talking about long term, do we have any information or data around, the impact on the value of the property itself if it is green rather than not?
Yeah, that's a good question. That I have not seen, but we, as part of the Hennepin County Collaborative, we're talking with the U.S. Green Building Council about identifying case studies that, are a proof of concept. And so that's part of the information gathering that we're doing. So I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm sure you've already thought of this, but when you look at the long-term value propositions of a building or a large project like this one, there's one, what is the value of the building once you're done using the building, and then there's also the amount it costs to own and run and maintain the building, right? So once you look at the green aspects of owning and maintaining the building, I think that's going to also tip the scales in favor. So
yes, and that's a great point, Commissioner Rattan. And that I'll just mention, that's one of the sticking points is that the developers are usually not the property operators. And so the idea is that there's a disconnect between who's making the investment and who's reaping the rewards. So that is a piece of information that we're trying to improve understanding of that connection. Yeah.
One other quick point aligned with that, the developers are not created equal, and potentially a policy like this, let's say it turns off a certain set of developers that might have been attracted to the city of Edina, it will invariably attract the developers that are already completely on board with these principles, understand it, have already developed sustainable and green developments, buildings, communities, whatever, and they will be the ones that come to Edina and take the developable properties and turn them into something that we all want.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anybody else has comments?
And Commissioner Hovanec, I do see your notes in the chat, so thank you. They're captured.
Grace, I have a question. What will be the benefits of having the two ratings, like the third-party rating and the city overlay?
Yeah.
Because I saw some of the cities in the table, they just have one, right?
Yes, the majority of the cities do have both, but there are a couple, like some, we're talking about 6 cities. I think 4 have both. One, and I'm blanking on who it is, it might be Maplewood, that only requires third-party rating systems. Duluth only has an overlay. The benefit of having both is that the third-party rating systems are built and they are familiar to many in the development community. The benefit, so it's something that we can take off the shelf. You know, we have builders, designers, inspectors who are LEED certified, so they can engage that process very intuitively. The overlay has the benefit of saying that no matter which third-party rating system a development chooses, in Edina, we want to make sure that XYZ is accomplished. So in our case, the electric vehicle requirements are different and more aggressive in our overlay than they are in the third-party rating systems. And this is based on, it aligns this policy with our Living Streets policy and our transportation-oriented design policy as well. So the idea is that the overlay is you know, what does Edina want or need to see in our community? We want to make sure that's in every development that comes through.
Thank you. Anybody else have comment? John?
Sorry, chiming in a lot here. The one other thing I'd recommend is a mapping between the overlay and the third-party rating systems, where if you meet certain LEED criteria, that would also automatically take care of the overlay. Having that sort of spelled out would eliminate a lot of confusion. Ultimately, would probably save a lot of staff time in the long run by having that spelled out ahead of time.
Yeah, great point. Thank you.
Anybody else has questions? Tom, Corey? Are you good? No? So Grace, now that we have give you some comments, like, can we think about it, revise more, and send it more comments to you? You have until June, you said, to present this?
Yes, even more time. So you're absolutely welcome to send me any more comments by email. Two next steps or two kind of key deadlines for you. The first one is that the city operations policy is going in front of the executive leadership team and the city manager in May. And we anticipate, barring any big red flags, that it will be adopted at that time for the city buildings only. The commercial policy kicks off in May as well. But we are not putting anything in front of the council again until September. And it will be in September that I say, here's what the EEC has shared with, you know, these are the comments from the EEC. I anticipate bringing back to the EEC around that time as well, where we land on the commercial policy, so that we can have both these initial and those kind of near final comments for the council. So May and September are kind of the big dates to keep in mind as you consider what comments you want to share.
Okay, perfect. Bayardo?
Yeah. Do we know where council stands currently on any of this, on the commercial buildings? Are they open? Are they accepting? Or are they more of a hands-off?
They are open. It is due to the council that it is on staff's work plan in the first place. They asked staff to study this and provide a proposal. When I presented to the council in March, they were generally supportive of the framework. Their questions primarily were around better understanding the economic impact of such a policy. So that's the big piece that we're bringing back to them. And that's why we're doing some pretty intensive engagement on the commercial policy development, talking with not only the development community, but also residents who live around highly developed areas, that kind of thing.
Okay, perfect, Grace. Thank you. Anybody else before we move on? I guess no. Okay, Grace, before, yes? Sorry, is it you, Kasha?
I think somebody dropped, maybe.
Well, Grace, before we move out of the work plan, there are two requests I wanted to ask you. One is for the initiative number 3, the one that it has to do with the tabling events. So they are supposed to start in June. So they were supposed to be events that the city were going to organize. So can you confirm maybe for the next meeting if they're going to happen? So we can start like assigning times to the different commissioners.
Yes, absolutely. I will confirm with you.
And the other one was related to initiative number 7, the one that we were supposed to work with the transportation community. So I don't know if we can have some update of what they are doing and maybe have a more active participation instead of just receiving a document later, perhaps some comments. I don't know if that is possible. So if you can help us also with that, that could be great.
Yep, I will talk with our transportation planner to see if they can organize an update for our May 6th meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, well, our next item of the agenda, it's chair and members' comments. And here, what I want to bring to the table is that in April 2022 is Earth Day. So Grace was asking us if we, well, she asked me if we have interest in doing something. I know it's a difficult time to organize events, but she was maybe thinking about if somebody is interested in writing up something for the webpage, for the webpage, or generating some tweeters. Also, Michelle suggested publishing the pollinator friendly policies and procedures. So I just want to maybe have a brief discussion about it. If anybody is interested in doing something, I'm open for suggestions. What Grace suggests was that probably somebody, if somebody's interested in writing a post on the Better Together webpage, or maybe bringing some important facts for Twitter that can maybe help bring the attention to the date. So I don't know if anybody has suggestions.
I'll just mention, since I know we have a number of new commissioners this year, and I myself am new to the city, that what I understand is historically the city council has approved a resolution related to the natural environment in April. And so Commissioner Horan mentioned that last year the council approved a resolution in support of pollinator habitat in Edina, but that with the COVID-19 pandemic, that kind of got lost in the shuffle. And so that maybe that could be something that we promote this year and remind everyone as they get into their spring planting. So Commissioner Horan, I don't know if you want to speak more on that specific topic.
Yeah, sorry, my computer does. So we just talked about Earth Day. I missed it.
Yes, we're talking about Earth Day and the pollinator resolution.
Yeah, so I apologize. I missed the conversation, so I don't know what you already said, because like I said, my computer died.
Sorry, Michelle, I was mentioning that maybe we can, somebody will be interested in writing a post or maybe publishing something related to the pollinator city ordinance. So Grace was saying if you can talk a little bit about that ordinance, because I didn't know about it. I'm been here for a year, and I guess most of the new commissioners doesn't know about it. So if you can maybe talk briefly about it.
Yeah, so there are quite a few cities. I think right now there's probably 39 municipalities that have passed a resolution that promotes and protects pollinators. And so last year we wrote up a report and a resolution that was brought up to council, and they accepted it to say that basically Edina and their actions that they take protect pollinators. And we can actually, it might be a good idea to share that again with the EEC. So after that was passed, myself and a student commissioner at the time wrote, actually, she wasn't a commissioner. She worked at Project Earth at the high school. She helped me with the presentation that we presented to EEC prior to the resolution passing. And we wrote an article that we submitted to the Sun Current, but it was never published. And the timing actually, I think right now, if we could just resurrect that actual article, would be perfect, because now we're going into spring and it would be great to do something. But I do think just in general, I think the residents of Edina should know that the city's passed this, and I don't think there's any way anybody knew. I mean, I didn't hear anything about it. So I don't think residents know about it. So I think it'd be a great time to kind of, there's also pollution. I think we should celebrate it somehow. So any other ideas on how to get that out, Grace, would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, yeah, if that's the route we want to take, we can spotlight the pollinator resolution on our Better Together climate project site. And we can promote it through social media as well. And if folks are struck by particular facts around pollinators, you know, feel free to send me a note, and I can make sure that those are shared on city social media sites, Twitter, Facebook, etc. The city will do a banner, Happy Earth Day, on its website, so we can link that maybe directly to the resolution, so that if folks click on it, they can see what Edina is prioritizing.
Yeah, and Grace, there's, I think, a lot of things that people don't really know about our pollinators, and I can get you a list of those, because I do think, especially like, you know, we're all anxious to get into, and one of the big reasons you shouldn't like dig up your garden beds where there might be leaves and other you know, twigs and stuff until I think the temperature is like above a certain, I don't remember the exact temperature, but once it gets above a certain temperature, well, if it's below that, you could disturb nesting bees. So there's just a lot of little things that I think people don't realize that will help us maybe not act on our urges to invade our gardens sooner than later. So I think getting that information out now is a great idea too. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Michelle. So, Grace, if anybody else wants to write a blog about any topic they think will be interesting for Earth Day, should they reach out to you?
Yes, send me an email and I will make sure that things are published and promoted.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. So the next item is staff comments. So I don't know, Grace, if you have any comment that you want to share. Yeah, John.
Sorry, I had one comment. I think it would be really useful, especially because we have so many new members, to understand what the commission's done in the past and what's been on previous work plans, what has been raised and then accomplished, and then also what's been in the parking lot. I don't know if there's a way for us to get a hold of those documents, or for somebody to kind of organize that and like put it in one place. I think that'd be tremendously useful, both as a source of ideas for things that may not have been completed thoroughly in the past, and also just to know where everybody's already spent time. So is that something, Grace, that you were able to track down, or is there another route that we should be taking?
Yeah, that's a great point. I can pull past work plans along with comments about what was accomplished, what was completed or not. This kind of has I'm wondering if perhaps Chair Martinez or Vice Chair Haran might be interested in asking one of our recently rolled off EEC members who were on for 6 years to come back as like an emeritus and do a short presentation on, where has the EEC been? That might be really helpful. We can talk offline about that, but at the very least, John, yes, I can get the work plan items together and share that out with the commissioners before the next meeting for sure.
I think that depending on what's in that set of information, it might actually be a work plan item itself to kind of comb through that, identify anything that might be, ripe for further work by this commission.
Another place also for Grace would be our chapter in the comp plan.
Yes, Corey.
Yeah, I just had two quick questions. So Grace, I know you mentioned the survey for the climate action plan earlier on in the meeting. I saw the article, I believe, in the Sun Times, or the Sun Current, sorry. I'm from Chicago, so Sun Times. Sun Current. Is there any other way we're amplifying that survey to people to make sure that it's getting out there? I'm just wondering, like, are we using social media? Are we using the Edina Instagram pages and stuff like that?
Yes. So the survey I could have provided this in the climate plan, but the survey went live the last week of March. We've received about 250 responses so far, so not bad. It initially the press release that was posted in the Sun Current also was posted to all the social media, but we're doing biweekly social media pushes on it. You'll also see it come through on your Edition Edina printed newsletter for May and June. And then we're doing a couple targeted postcard mailings to areas that are under engaged. And in Edina, we have pretty low engagement in our northwest and southeast corners of the city. So we're doing some printed outreach in English, Somali, and Spanish to those areas specifically. So there is a pretty big push. It's the survey is just the first engagement tool. So this is also about just increasing broad awareness about the plan. But be on the lookout. You'll see more on that social media side.
Okay, and then the results, those are going to be shared, I'm assuming, with that initiative, but are they going to be shared in this meeting as well once the survey closes?
Yes, as the survey directly informs one of the first deliverables on the climate action plan itself, which is the baseline assessment. So you'll receive the results of that survey in that context.
Okay, perfect. And then last question. I know for us new commissioners, we kind of jumped right into this with, I would say, not really an opportunity to do introductions and meet people and really understand the skills and backgrounds and what people bring to these meetings. I don't know if there's any precedent, Grace, for sending out some sort of like bios book of, background on people and, their careers and things like that. And so we get a sense for what each of us can really contribute to this. So I like attending these meetings. I don't feel like I've gotten to know people just yet, which I think would be more rewarding.
I think that's a great idea. Let me circle up with MJ Lehman, our community engagement coordinator, to see what we might be able to put out there and where it might be a simple question about consent or asking folks to write something up, but I think that's a great idea. So I'll talk with her and get back to the commission.
Perfect.
Thank you. Bayardo?
Chair Hilda, Chair Martinez, would it just make it easier for Grace if maybe the next meeting we schedule a little bit of, hey, this is me, this is what I do, I've been here for this, so I'm new, rather than try to go through MJ and try to do bios and authorizations and whatnot?
Yeah, I guess we can do that. I don't know, Grace. I think the thing is the last meeting was so long that I guess everybody was so tired. But yeah, I guess normally the meetings last 1 hour, so I guess we can try to do it next meeting, and so we can know each other.
So I just want to say,
look at the agenda and build in that time.
Oh, sorry. So Hilda, since you've been on the commission, they've only been short, but literally we would really be lucky to get out the door at 9:30. So I kind of laugh. We
Okay.
never got out early. So
So I'm giving you false expectations. Sorry,
yeah.
guys.
There were a lot more. Yeah. So but I do think it would be helpful to have just a little bit of a kind of history on the commission and just some background too. And Grace, it might be good to have a past commissioner come in also to tell the backstory, because I think it does tell a lot of how we got to where we are, and because there was a lot to get to where we are. So that's all I have to say. But yeah, I think we've been really lucky this last year to get off so easy.
I would say, if possible, former Commissioner Manser would be the most appropriate person to come and do said presentation. We can't do Carolyn anymore.
Well, and Carolyn wasn't there that long, so I think Manser's been there the longest, and then after that would be Melissa. So, but he was there the longest.
He was chair and co-chair also, so I think he knows.
He'd be a great candidate.
He's probably the most knowledgeable person for the last few commissioners and the work plans.
So Bayardo, do you want to ask him? Will you do that? So Grace, do we have time for next meeting to have sometimes, or should we open? So should we give him a couple of options, like maybe next, like whatever works for him in either the next meeting or the following ones?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
give them some options, and you know, it can be 5 to 30 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other comment? So I guess Grace, it's your turn for comments. This is the staff comments. So I don't know if you have any comment.
Just briefly, and not content related, but instead administrative. We do have a few new commissioners, and I understand that we've had some technical difficulties with WebEx, making sure that the emails are coming in so you have the invites in a timely manner, making sure that you have access to Novus Agenda to see the agenda ahead of time. So please let me know if you continue to have, if you have issues, and if you continue to have them, send me a note this week and we'll see what we can work with our IT to figure out why the invites are getting stuck in your spam filter, or if God forbid we have the wrong email address or something. So let me know. We want to get that straightened out ASAP. And then I just had a question. I wanted to add a little bit of information about kind of like why these meetings are organized the way they are. So we don't have a recurring WebEx link because these meetings are live streamed on YouTube for public access, and they require a unique link each time YouTube is connected. So we generate these on a monthly basis. But I could send you all just a calendar hold for your calendars if you would like for the rest of the year. And then you would receive a separate monthly invitation for WebEx. So let me know if you would prefer that, or if you're happy just to continue receiving these one-off WebEx links.
No, if we can, let's do the whole, please.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Great.
2 little ones at home, it's easier to plan.
Perfect. Yep. Awesome. Okay. So that was it from me, just administrative, making sure folks are getting the information they need, but otherwise, that is all.
Well, thank you, Grace. So I guess the next meeting is the adjournment. So if anybody wants to call for the adjournment.
Move.
Nobody has called it. Okay, I will call it and then Vallardo will move it. So Grace, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Decane,
Aye.
Commissioner Haugen,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Hovanek, Commissioner Lanzis, Commissioner Lukens,
Aye.
Chair Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Raton,
Aye.
and Commissioner Tessman.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you everybody and have a great evening and see you in a month. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Everybody.